My fiancée deceived me for 3 years, but when I discovered her brother manipulated her to steal my $10 million business, I exposed them both, and what happened next left them broken. I'm 34 years old, I own a chain of organic grocery stores, and 3 months ago I discovered that the woman I was going to marry tried to steal my business. And when I say steal, I'm not speaking figuratively. She literally had a detailed plan to take half of my company that took me 10 years to build from scratch. The thing is, I never thought something like this would happen to me. You know, you always think you know the person you're with, but the truth is that money brings out the worst in people, and in this case, it brought out something I didn't even know existed. I should start from the beginning, I guess. I met Amanda like 3 years ago at a networking event. She worked in social media marketing for fashion brands and seemed super normal. Sweet, ambitious, but in a healthy way. You know what I mean? We had a lot in common. Or so I thought. We liked to travel. We were kind of workaholics. We shared the same vision about having a balanced life between professional and personal. We started dating and everything was perfect for the first 2 years. Like that kind of relationship where you think you found your person, you know? She met my family. I met hers. The Bennetts were normal people, a bit intense sometimes, but nothing out of the ordinary. Amanda had 2 siblings, Kevin and Victoria, and from the beginning I got along better with Victoria than with Kevin, but it's not like we spent much time with them, so I didn't think much of it. My business at that time was already doing pretty well. I had like 9 stores distributed across 2 states, and was in the process of expanding to a third. I had started with a single store 10 years ago, basically working 18 hours a day, investing every cent I earned in growing the business, and finally I was seeing the fruits of all that effort. Amanda was always super respectful of my work. She understood when I had to cancel plans because there was some crisis at one of the stores. She supported me when I was stressed about openings. And honestly, that was one of the things I liked most about her, that she wasn't one of those people who complains because you work a lot or makes you feel guilty for focusing on your career. Last year I proposed to her and she said yes, obviously. We started planning the wedding for this summer. Something not too big, but elegant, like 150 people. We already had the venue booked and everything. And then came the topic of the prenuptial agreement. Look, I know people hate talking about that it sounds unromantic and that technically you're planning for a divorce before getting married, but when you have a business worth what mine is worth, you simply can't take the risk. I brought it up to Amanda as carefully as possible. I explained that it wasn't because I didn't trust her, but because it was what all my lawyers and my accountant strongly recommended. And to my surprise, she totally agreed. She told me she understood perfectly. Would also have her own income and didn't need my money, that what we had was real love and had nothing to do with finances. Basically, she told me everything I needed to hear, and I felt so relieved that it wasn't going to be one of those terrible dramas I'd heard about from other people. We hired lawyers, each our own, and started working on the terms. I was super fair, honestly. I wasn't one of those stingy guys who don't want to give anything. The agreement basically said that she would keep everything that was hers before the marriage. I would keep my business and the properties I had, and anything we acquired together during the marriage would be divided equitably if we separated. It also included a clause where if we were married more than 10 years, she would receive reasonable compensation because, 10 years is a long time and it's fair to recognize that life investment. Amanda reviewed everything with her lawyer and told me it seemed perfect, that it was fair and balanced, and we signed a preliminary version. It was like 2 months before the wedding, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. But then, about 3 months ago, Amanda's brother, Kevin, came back to town. Kevin is like 32 years old, I think, and has a pretty disastrous track record, honestly. He's been married 3 times and all 3 marriages ended badly, like really badly, with legal battles and mutual accusations and all that drama. He had also tried to set up several businesses that failed one after another, and according to what Victoria told me later, he was always looking for the quick way to make money without actually working for it. But at that time, I didn't know that much about him. I only knew he was the problematic brother who showed up from time to time asking his parents for money. When Kevin came back this time, Amanda started to change. At first they were small things that I noticed, but didn't seem that important. She started spending a lot more money on things she wasn't interested in before, Like suddenly she needed designer clothes and expensive bags, when before she was pretty normal with her purchases. She also started asking me specific questions about the business that she had never asked before. Things like exactly how much we invoiced, how the ownership of the stores was structured, who my partners were, if I had plans to sell ever. At first I thought she was just showing more interest because we were going to get married, and she wanted to better understand my work. But there was something about the way she asked that felt weird, like very calculated. And then there was the issue that suddenly she wanted to get involved in the business. She told me that as she was going to be my wife, she should have some role in the company, that she had marketing experience and could help with the store's image on social media. Which, okay, didn't sound completely crazy in theory, but the timing was strange, and the way she brought it up was very insistent. I told her I'd think about it, that after the wedding we could explore how she could collaborate, but that, for now, I had a marketing team that was working well, and I didn't want to make big changes right before the wedding, when I already had enough stress. But the thing that really put me on alert was when my assistant Carol told me that Amanda had stopped by the office one day when I wasn't there and had been asking about specific files. She had even tried to get into my computer. Carol thought that maybe I had asked her to look for something and sent me a message to confirm. When I asked Amanda about it, she got super defensive, told me she was just looking for some wedding documents she thought I had at the office and that Carol was exaggerating. It didn't make much sense, but I also didn't want to start a big fight a few weeks before the wedding, so I let it go. Although something in my stomach told me something wasn't right. 2 weeks before the wedding, my lawyer called me to come sign the final version of the prenup. I went to his office, sat down to read the document before signing it like any responsible person would do, and I almost fell out of my chair when I saw what it said. The agreement had been completely modified. Now it said that Amanda would have the right to half of my business immediately after marriage, not after 10 years. Immediately. It also included clauses that gave her rights over any future expansion, access to all the company's bank accounts, and basically made her co-owner of everything I had built before meeting her. It was literally legalized theft disguised as a marriage agreement. I told my lawyer that this wasn't what we had agreed to, that someone had changed the document without my knowledge, and he went pale because obviously this was super serious. He explained that the changes had been sent by Amanda's lawyer with a note saying they were minor, formatting adjustments, and that I had already approved the general content, pure lies. My lawyer asked me if I wanted to proceed with the wedding, and obviously I told him absolutely not, that I needed to confront Amanda immediately because this was fraud, basically. I went straight to her apartment. She was there watching TV like nothing, and I put the document in front of her. I asked her what the hell this was and why she had tried to modify our agreement without telling me anything, and here comes the part I still find hard to believe. Amanda acted like I was crazy. She told me those were just standard protections for wives, that her lawyer had recommended she make sure she was protected in case I decided to leave her after she invested years of her life in our marriage. I told her that was completely different from stealing half of my company the day we got married, and she started crying, saying I didn't trust her, that if I really loved her, I wouldn't have a problem sharing what was mine with her, all that typical manipulative speech. I told her we needed to postpone the wedding until we resolved this properly, and she exploded. She yelled at me that I was ruining everything, that her family had already spent money on this, which was a lie because I was paying for almost everything, and that if I really loved her, I wouldn't be making this drama over a piece of paper. I left her there crying and left because I felt that if I stayed, I was going to say things I'd regret. But the nightmare was just beginning. The next day, I had an important meeting with potential investors for the expansion to the 4th state, and Amanda showed up at my office, without warning, saying she was my future wife and business partner and that she had the right to be in that meeting. I had to ask her to leave in front of my assistants and the investors. It was super awkward and professionally embarrassing. After she left, I literally apologized to the investors, explaining to them that there was a misunderstanding and that Amanda had no role in my company. The meeting continued, but the damage was done, and one of the investors later called me to tell me that if I had such big personal problems, maybe it wasn't the best time to expand. I mean, Amanda almost cost me a multi-million-dollar business opportunity with her little show. What happened next was that Kevin, the brother, got completely involved. He started calling my phone, leaving me threatening messages, saying I was treating his sister badly, that I was going to regret publicly humiliating her, basically acting like a bad movie thug. He also convinced Amanda's entire family that I was the villain, that I had used Amanda, and now that the wedding was close, I was trying to take away what legally belonged to her. Amanda's parents, who had always been kind to me, suddenly weren't answering my calls. I felt like I was in an alternate reality where I was the bad guy in the story, when I had literally discovered we were trying to rob me. I decided to do something a bit risky but necessary. I sent Kevin a message telling him I wanted to talk to him in person to resolve this like adults. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my house. I went prepared. I had my phone recording in my pocket because I didn't trust anyone in that family anymore. Kevin arrived super confident, like that body language of someone who thinks they've already won, and started explaining to me that the best thing for everyone was for me to accept the new terms of the prenup because Amanda deserved to be rewarded for being with me, that she was going to be a devoted wife, and that I should be grateful to have her. He was basically negotiating as if Amanda were a product they were selling me. And then, because I guess he was too arrogant to keep his mouth shut, Kevin started talking about how he had helped Amanda understand the real value she brought to the relationship, and that once we were married he expected me to give Tim a position in the company too, because families should support each other. I have all this recorded, every word. I asked him directly if he had been the one who convinced Amanda to change the prenup, and he basically admitted it. Said someone had to protect his sister's interests because she was too naive to do it alone. He said that with his business experience, his 3 failed businesses, let's remember, he could help me take the company to the next level. It was so absurd I almost laughed, but I kept my composure. That same night, Carol called me at 11 at night, super upset. She had gone back to the office because she had forgotten her computer and found Kevin inside, going through files on my desk. He had gotten in using Amanda's key that I had given her months ago for emergencies. Carol called security and they removed him from the building. But the damage was already done. He had taken photos of confidential documents with his phone. And the next day, I checked the email logs and discovered that Amanda had been sending herself documents about the company's finances, contracts with suppliers, information about properties, basically everything that could be valuable. This was no longer just a questionable prenup. This was full-blown corporate espionage. I took all the evidence I had, the recordings of Kevin, Amanda's email logs, the security reports, and went to my lawyer. He told me I had a solid case, not only to cancel the wedding, but potentially for legal action for attempted fraud and theft of intellectual property. I told him I just wanted this to end, that I didn't want revenge or to ruin anyone. I just wanted them to leave me alone. My lawyer prepared a formal email that was sent to Amanda, her lawyer, and Kevin, where it basically said that the wedding was canceled indefinitely due to documented attempts at fraud in the prenuptial agreement and behavior that constituted corporate espionage, and that any attempt at future contact would be considered harassment and handled through legal channels. Amanda responded with like 20 text messages that same night, going through all the stages. First denial saying I was exaggerating, then anger saying I was ruining her life, then please saying we could work it out if we talked, and finally threats saying her lawyer was going to sue me for emotional damages. I didn't answer any of them, but I did change all the locks on my house, updated all the security systems in my stores, and notified my bank and all my suppliers that Amanda had no authorization to act on my behalf. I thought that would be the end of it, that Amanda would understand she had lost and move on with her life. But then something happened that still gives me chills when I think about it. I had given Amanda a credit card linked to one of my accounts for emergencies, like if she needed something urgent while we were together or if she was with me and I didn't have cash. Those things. She never used it. Maybe $50 a month buying coffee or something. Well, in 3 days, between the moment I sent the email canceling the wedding and the moment I realized what was happening, Amanda spent $122,000. $122,000. She bought luxury bags, shoes, designer clothes, jewelry, even a Rolex watch. She bought it all online and had it sent to an address I didn't know, probably Kevin's house. When I saw the statement, I almost had a heart attack. I called the bank immediately to report the fraud, but they told me it technically wasn't fraud because she was an authorized user of the card. I had to explain to them that the relationship had ended and that those purchases were clearly in bad faith, and they finally agreed to cancel the card and dispute the larger transactions. Then I called Amanda, basically screaming, asking her what the hell was going through her head. And her response was incredible. She told me that money was compensation for the time she had wasted with me and for the public humiliation of the canceled wedding. I told her she was a thief and that I was going to recover every cent, and she told me to do whatever I wanted, but that she had already sold half the things and spent the money. I hung up because I literally felt like my head was going to explode. My lawyer contacted her lawyer formally, demanding the return of the money. Her lawyer had the nerve to respond, saying that the purchases were made during the period when there was still reasonable expectation of marriage, and therefore Amanda had acted as a future wife preparing for her new life. I mean, the mental gymnastics this guy did to justify outright theft was Olympic. We ended up reaching an agreement where Amanda returned like $60,000 in cash. I guess that was the most she could get reselling the stuff. And I had to accept it because pursuing the rest was going to cost me more in legal fees than I would recover. Honestly, I thought I had already hit rock bottom and that it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Like 2 weeks after all this, Victoria, Amanda's sister, contacted me. She told me she needed to see me urgently, that she had discovered something I needed to know. We met at a neutral restaurant, and she literally put a laptop in front of me. It was Kevin's computer. Apparently, he had left it at his parents' house, and Victoria had checked it because she suspected something weird was going on. What Victoria found left me speechless. Kevin had an entire folder called Project C. I guess C was for Christopher, my name. Inside were documents detailing a step-by-step plan of how to convince Amanda to modify the prenup, how to get access to my company, what information they needed to obtain, and even a timeline of when to execute each phase of the plan. There were spreadsheets calculating how much my business was worth, how much they could get in a quick divorce after marriage, and how to divide the profits between Kevin and Amanda. There were emails between Kevin and a corrupt lawyer, not the same one officially representing Amanda, discussing how to word the prenup modifications so they would seem innocent. There were text messages between Kevin and Amanda where he literally gave her scripts of what to tell me and how to act, so I wouldn't suspect. The plan had started like 6 months ago, basically since Kevin found out I was going to propose marriage. He had completely manipulated Amanda, taking advantage of the fact that she admired and trusted him, telling her that I was rich and that she deserved a part of that wealth, that she would be stupid if she married me without making sure she was financially protected. He had convinced her that this was normal, that all smart wives did this, that I wasn't going to notice, and if I noticed, I wouldn't care because I loved her. Kevin had even planned his own role after the marriage. He had a document where he had self-appointed himself director of operations of a company with a salary of $250,000 a year. Victoria was crying while showing me all this, saying she couldn't believe her brother was capable of something like this, that she always knew Kevin was problematic, but never imagined he was so malicious. She asked me what I was going to do with the information, and honestly, I didn't know. Part of me wanted to go straight to the police, but another part just wanted it all to end and never see any member of that family again, including Victoria, even though she wasn't at fault. Victoria told me she had already talked to her parents and shown them the evidence. The Bennetts were devastated. Apparently, Amanda had lied to them, saying I had been the one who changed the terms of the prenup at the last minute to leave her with nothing, and they had believed her because Kevin backed up her story. Now, they realized their son had manipulated their daughter into committing fraud. Victoria also told me that Amanda was starting to understand what Kevin had done, that she was confused and sorry, but that she still didn't grasp the full magnitude of what she had tried to do to me. Victoria thought Amanda had been more victim than villain in all this, and maybe she was right on some level, but for me it was irrelevant because the damage was already done. I thanked Victoria for showing me the evidence and told her I would keep it in case I needed it legally, but that for now, I just wanted to move forward with my life. She understood. A few days later, Amanda tried to contact me, left a long, crying voicemail, saying she had been manipulated by Kevin, that he had put all those ideas in her head, that she had never really wanted to hurt me, that she still loved me and if we could talk to fix things. I deleted the message without finishing listening to it. But Amanda didn't give up so easily. She sent me letters, emails, even showed up at one of my stores trying to see me. I had to formally notify her that she was harassing me and that if she didn't stop, I was going to get a restraining order. Her new lawyer, because the previous one had apparently dropped her when he found out about the fraud, sent a letter trying to negotiate some kind of compensation for emotional damages, saying I had promised to marry her and that the abrupt cancellation had caused her psychological trauma. My lawyer responded with all the evidence from Project C and threats to countersue for attempted fraud, theft, and corporate espionage. We didn't hear from that lawyer again. The really satisfying part, if I can call it that, came like a month later. It turns out Kevin hadn't just been spying on me. In his criminal brilliance, he had been selling confidential information from my company to some of my competitors, thinking he could make extra money while planning his big heist. One of my suppliers called me to tell me that a guy had been offering him information about my supply contracts and my expansion strategy. And when he described the guy, it was obviously Kevin. I reported this to the police with all the evidence I had, and Kevin ended up facing charges for corporate espionage. I don't know exactly how his case ended because I stopped following it, but I know it had to do with a plea deal and community service or something. He didn't go to prison, but he got a record. Amanda eventually realized there was no way to fix what she had broken. Her parents forced her to write me a formal apology letter that I never read completely. I only saw the first lines where she said she had been foolish and vulnerable and that Kevin had taken advantage of that. Maybe it was true, but the thing is that at some point she made conscious decisions to deceive me, to modify that prenup, to send confidential information to her brother, to spend $122,000 from my accounts out of spite. Those were her decisions. Nobody forced her. Kevin manipulated her. Yes, but she was a 9-year-old adult with her own career and her own mind, not a helpless child. The craziest thing is that after all this, Amanda started dating a new guy like 3 months later. I know, because Victoria mentioned it to me in one of the last messages we exchanged before we cut contact completely. Apparently the new boyfriend is a corporate lawyer with family money, so I guess Amanda found her next target. I hope for that guy's sake she learned something from this whole mess, but honestly I doubt it. As for me, well, here I am. I updated all the security protocols in my stores, changed my entire legal team, and basically became much more careful about who I let into my personal life. I opened the expansion to the 4th state 2 months ago, and it's going pretty well, although not with the original investors that Amanda scared away. My family was incredible during all this, especially my sister, who basically moved in with me for a few weeks to make sure I was eating and sleeping well. Because I was so stressed, I stopped doing both things properly. Am I dating someone new? No. Honestly, I don't feel like it yet. It's not that I'm devastated about Amanda specifically. It's more that all this left me with like this deep tiredness of relationships in general. You know what I mean? Like, I lost that naivety or hope or whatever it's called that makes you want to try with someone new. My friends keep telling me that not all women are like Amanda, that I shouldn't let one bad experience ruin my chances of being happy with someone else. And yes, obviously they're right. But for now, I'm fine alone. I have my work, which, ironically, trying to steal it made me appreciate it even more. I have my family. I have some true friends who supported me during this whole disaster. Sometimes I think about what it would have been like if I had never discovered the modified prenup. If I had signed that document without reading it carefully, I would have married Amanda, and probably within a few months she would have asked for a divorce with Kevin whispering in her ear, and they would have taken half of everything I built. 10 years of working 16-hour days, of sacrificing time with family and friends, of risking all my money on each new store, all of that would have gone to someone who was only with me 3 years, and whose last months were basically an elaborate scam operation. It's terrifying to think how close I came to losing everything. Last week, one of my employees, a guy who's worked at the main store since I opened 10 years ago, asked me if I was going to get married again someday. I told him I didn't know, that maybe when I'm like 50 and I don't care as much about protecting my assets anymore because I'll be old and tired. He laughed, but I was kind of serious. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who makes me change my mind, someone who proves to me with consistent actions over years that I can trust. But for now, I'm fine like this. I have my business. I have my peace of mind, and after all the chaos with Amanda and Kevin and that whole family, Peace of mind is worth more than any company.